Gazza's Wallaby squad. So my dad, Gazza, if you haven't seen his first video, he did a video picking an all-time All Black squad. He's gone ahead and picked an all-time Wallaby squad, but this one's a big old touring squad. He had the video recorded for quite some time, and he's been kind of on my case to get it out to you people. It has been on Patreon for a couple of weeks already, so you guys would have already seen it. We've got some feedback about that. So yeah, I do have a Patreon, quiet plug, if you want to support the channel. Link in the description. Just saying. But yeah, Gazza's picked his squad. I should say a couple of things. I think based on, because I gave him a bit of feedback from the comment section on the All Black squad, I feel like potentially he's gone with a very big squad to try and avoid some of those kind of, how could you pick this guy over that guy comments, but that's just the kind of thing. I'm used to that from whenever I pick like a Lions squad or, you know, Dream Team, Team of the Week, all that kind of stuff. You're always going to get that debate, which is not a bad thing, but it's a pretty big squad. If you can think of a big name Wallaby player, they're probably there, but if there's others, do leave them in the comments. I might see if I can get them on the camera to do some kind of Gazza reacts to YouTube comments. I think that could be quite fun. Also, I didn't mention to him when I set him up, because I basically just hit record and left the room. I forgot to tell him the camera is here, because the laptop is here, which is where the screen is. So he spends the video looking at the screen rather than you guys at the camera. So that's why he's looking down the whole time. Enjoy it. He certainly enjoyed making it. He loves getting the reaction from you guys, and he loves, you know, being along for the live streams and having a wee yarn as well. So he's got a South African one planned as well. So yeah, let me know what you think, guys, and yeah, hopefully I can get him to react to the comments at some point. Keep it nice, of course. All right, guys, talk to you soon. See you later.
G'day everybody, how's it going? I've been working on this project for about a month now. It's called Operation Wallaby. Poor Australians been getting a bit of a hard time with the latest in world rugby and Australian rugby, so I thought, well, I was actually going to do a All Black team to take a big match tour of Australia, but I thought I would, you know, for like do something for the last 4 decades of Wallaby rugby, and they could sort of do a 30-match tour of New Zealand. You know, just let your imagination run wild a bit. And I've done a lot of research on the team that I chose and the fixtures that I've picked for them to do in New Zealand. And this is really a gesture of something that how I feel about Australian rugby. They've had some great teams in the past. They've had some not so great teams in the last few years. But I thought that I would pick the squad that on the supposed tour. And I've also got an insurance policy of an injury cover squad, because if they're going to do like a 25 or 30 match tour of New Zealand, they're going to have a lot of injuries. So they're going to need a lot of backup, because there's going to be, they're only 3 hours away, so they can come in and, have injury cover and just fly a guy over if they need to. Also, I thought, like, with this project, I would use my imagination a bit. So you guys probably won't know a lot of these players, because some of them are going back to the late 70s, 80s World Cup, 90s, and then the early 2000s and the late 2000s, the late, sort of to 2020, where they will, be, you guys will have to have a look at them on YouTube about how good some of these players were. So I'll start with the team that I've picked. The hookers, I've done 4. Like, the reason I've given them a big squad to 2 in New Zealand is I figured if the Lions can bring 45 or 47 players to New Zealand for a 10-match tour, we can give these guys 51 or 52 players to 2 in New Zealand. And then if they have a astronomical, catastrophic number of injuries, they can fly somebody over. So that's my reasoning behind that. That's an insurance policy to have the, injury squad, which I'll get to in due course. So the hookers I picked are Stephen Moore, Phil Kearns, and Michael Foley and Tom Lawton. The props I've picked are Sekipi Kifu, Tony Daly, Mark Hartle, Andrew Blades, Patricio Noriega, Scott Seo, Ewan McKenzie, and Dan Crowley. The prime reason I picked 4 hookers, they're going to have injuries. We've got to have cover. The props was probably the hardest team to pick in relation to, we know Aussie front rows aren't that good. So I've had to really go deep into the Google rugby internet to get the props that I thought might stand up for New Zealand conditions against New Zealand sides, because that is really important. That they can sort of equal us in the scrums, match us, but maybe not beat us. The locks, John Eales, David Giffen, Nathan Sharp, Rod McCall, Justin Harrison, Stephen Cutler, and Stephen Williams. They're tall. That's the tall lineup. We know they got skyscrapers. So we have to, we know they're going to win a lot of lineup ball for their backs. So that's probably about the best combination I could pick. So, they're going to be good. Those guys are going to be good. I had no worries. Loose forwards, probably one of the hardest to pick. I picked 9 because injuries and everything else. Some guys can play different positions, like they can in the back. So there's a bit of, tweaking here, which is, Anyway, I'll give you my flankers and number 8s. Simon Pointevin, Michael Hooper, David Pocock, Owen Finnegan, David Wilson, George Smith, Willie Offahingawe, Tai Kefu, and Rocky Elsom. So I'll just repeat that, sorry. Simon Pointevin, Michael Hooper, David Pocock, Owen Finnegan, David Wilson, George Smith, Willie Offahingawe, Tai Kefu, Rocky Elsom. All good rugged players to come to New Zealand. Real good flankers, real good number 8s, guys that are going to extend the All Blacks. Okay, we now get on to the backs. This was an interesting one. Interesting as in it was really hard to pick because the Wallabies have just got so many good backs. I just had to leave some guys out. Even leave some guys out on the injury cover, which is, daunting. Anyway, the fullbacks I've picked, and there's some kickers in here too, so some of the kickers got in ahead of maybe some of the utilities, but this might not be the strongest Wallaby squad that you guys would pick after you've Googled it and studied what I've done, but, there's the injury list guys there, and we know a lot of them are going to come over when they have injuries. Okay, so I won't go on about that too long. The fullbacks are Roger Gould, Marty Roebuck, Chris Latham, and Anthony Herbert. All good fullbacks. A couple of them are really good pick kickers. And I know the next question you're going to ask me is, where are some of these other Wallaby fullbacks that I should have picked? Well, here we go. Wingers. Matthew Burke has played on the wing. David Campese. This guy, man, he just went missing in so many games, but he would just be like Chris Latham. He could just pop up from anywhere and score tries from nowhere. This guy's incredible. You always had to include him. Lockie Takiri, Wendell Saylor, Brendan Moon, he goes back a bit, and Joe Roth, and a guy named Ben Tune. Some of these guys were like, going back into the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. A good mixture of wingers, big guys, fast guys. Some of them went to league, but we won't hold that against them. There's a lot of guys in the squad that did that. But, they were exciting on the field. I've seen all these guys play, Joe Roth can play centre. Ben Tune can play centre. So there's a bit of utility there. Matthew Burke, sorry. David Campese can play fullback if they had injuries. So we've got cover there. Okay, so now we go to the centres. This is really hard to pick. This is really hard for me to pick. So I got Daniel Herbert, Jason Little, Tim Horan, Andrew Slack, Samu Karevi, Tavita Kurandrani, and Michael O'Connor. Michael O'Connor's a kicker. He went to league, but he was also a very good centre for Australia. All those guys, good centres. Couple of really big centres there. Guys that can also play on the wing if they had to, if they had a lot of injuries. So, yeah, these guys will, they all deserve their place. You guys might disagree, but that's fine. Yeah, this is what the selection's all about. The 5/8s, the first 5/8s I picked: Michael Liner, Stephen Larkham, Mark Eller. Mark Eller, magic on the field. Steve Larkham, he's a guy you wouldn't see for a long time, but he could come in like Campese or Latham, he just appeared out of nowhere. He could just score tries. He just goes through the back line. Oh, he's a magical player. Really good. Mark Eller and Stephen Larkham. Michael Liner, good solid first 5. A bit like Grant Fox, a bit like Dan Carter. This guy could just do things, that other 5/8s in that era in Australian rugby couldn't do. Anyway, I won't go into too much about that. Halfbacks I picked were Will Guinea, Nick Farr-Jones, George Gregan. Super halfbacks, all different, all magical in their own way, steady, consistent, fast, do things on the field that a lot of New Zealand halfbacks could do. Probably the closest New Zealand halfback I could compare to these guys is probably Aaron Smith, but there are others. There are a lot of other guys in New Zealand rugby that, they could do the same thing. Okay, so now we go to the injury squad. All right, now this was interesting. You guys, I know I haven't picked a lot of these players in the team to tour, but, these guys, they could all get a run. Well, not all of them, but say half of them. So the guys I picked were Jeremy Paul, really good hooker. Tatafu Patanao, another really good hooker. The props, I picked 5 props because they might get a lot of injuries and prop on this New Zealand tour, so I've given them a bit of cover. We're not going to restrict them on how many replacements they can bring over because, this is a really tough tour they're going to have. So it's Al Baxter, Ben Darwin, Andy McIntyre, James Slipper, and Cameron Lillicrap. All good players have played for Australia. They could have been in this initial squad, but they weren't. But, there's a chance for them to get in if there's any injuries. Just got to use your imagination here a bit. The locks, James Horswell, Ross Simmons, Peter Fitzsimmons. I picked 3 locks because maybe I think that they're not going to get that many injuries at lock on the tour. And they're not, they've got 7 big skyscrapers over there to play. So maybe if they had they used all their locks, the other 2 locks that they could pick, I haven't got them on my paper, would be Garrick Morgan or Garrick Fay, just as cover, but that would be in a real astronomical circumstance where, they weren't getting any, where they weren't, they're in dire straits with injuries. The loosies I picked were Greg Cornelison, Wycliffe Palu, Tony Shaw, Phil Waugh, and Steve Tyneman. Now, a couple of number 8s, a couple of guys that can play flank, flankers, and number 8, and Phil Waugh because he's a fetcher, he's a bit of a Michael Hooper, David Pocock type player. And if they get injuries, in what you call the scavenger fetcher type of loose forward, he could come in as cover. There were others I could have picked, but that's what I did as far as that was concerned. Now I'll get to their halfbacks, their reserve halfbacks I picked for the injury squad. Peter Slattery, Nick White, Nick Phillips. Peter Slattery He was down in 90s, I think, when I did my research on him. He was quite a good halfback. Nick Phipps need no introduction. Good solid players, plus Nick White's a kicker. So they were the guys that would be covering halfback if they had injuries. First fives, Quade Cooper and Bernard Foley. I picked as the injury squad reserve, cover first fives. I picked those two because we all know what they're like. Bernard Foley, steady, consistent player, quite a good goal kicker. Quade Cooper at his peak, another guy who did things on the field that really you saw, apart from guys like Mark Eller and Steve Larkin. Maybe not quite as good, but he still did a lot of things, even though there were some controversial moments in his career. Okay, now we go to the utilities I picked, which were Matt Giddo, Matt Rogers, James O'Connor and Curtly Beale. Now these guys can all play a number of positions, and it's exciting because we know that some of these guys here I think are going to get on this tour as injury cover. I would love to have included them in my initial squad, but then I thought, well, maybe we should have guys that can come in and play fly half, fullback, centre, even on the wing at a pinch if they needed to, So, and, a few of these guys in this utility bracket they can kick goals too. So they need cover there. So, it's exciting. It's exciting what they can do. The centres I picked were Sterling Mortlock. Now, I know a lot of you guys will probably agree he should have been in the initial squad, but he's a guy that they would bring over as if they had a serious injury in the centres. And he can also play wing. So he would come over. Very similar position for Adam Ashley Cooper. Different type of player, but he brings a lot to the game. And and on the wings I picked Peter Gregg, Israel Folau, and Digby Ioane. I know some of you guys would want these guys, particularly Israel Folau and Digby Ioane, in your initial team. But remember, injuries, these guys come over. They're a 3-hour flight away from anywhere in Australia to Auckland. They take, these guys are really good players, so they wouldn't take long to fit into a Wallaby test squad. In the case of you had astronomical amount of injuries, they would be there, and you guys would be excited if you saw them at Eden Park or the Sky Stadium or on the South Island, anywhere. You'd be really excited. Because these guys bring excitement. And I only picked one fullback, and I wasn't even going to do that, but I thought, well, maybe I should, because there's a lot of cover there at fullback already. There's an astronomical amount of cover, but I thought I'd let my imagination and the excitement when I was doing this project run away with me, and I picked Andrew Leeds. And he was like a guy that played for Australia. He also played league, and he was a good, steady player. Now, I've seen all these guys play, and there's some other guys there that I really wanted to put in the injury squad and the touring party, but I didn't for the simple reason that you can only pick so many, and I probably picked too many anyway. I just based it on, like I said, the Lions too, where they picked 45 players and had 15 guys on standby, and they flew a lot of them over as injury replacements, and that was only a 10-12 match tour, and that was just in 2017, so I thought that's what I'd do. Whether it's right or wrong, I'll leave that up to you. Right now, the tour. Oh, hang on, I'll give you the coaches. I found it rather hard I didn't really know much about Australian rugby tour managers, so what I did was I went for selectors, who I would have as Alan Jones and James Connolly. I know they both coach the Wallabies, but I put them in a selectorial role. The coaches I put in as Rod McQueen, Bob O'Dwyer, Eddie Jones, all World Cup winning coaches or assistants or Australian rugby when it was, they had a golden era in Australian rugby. And as their assistants, this is quite funny, I had Robbie Deans, New Zealand connection. He was also a coach. Michael Checker, controversial as you can be. You got to have him there. And Glenn Eller, that's a surprise. I didn't think I'd put Glenn Eller as a surprise. But when I Googled him, he's done quite a bit of coaching over there. and he's done a bit of work with Eddie Jones. So I'll put him in there as well because, he's actually played for Australia, and I know Ewan McKenzie has, but, I thought I'd just put these guys in because they're, they were the best fit for what I was looking at the time. Now the tour. I'll get to the tour. Right, where am I? Sorry. Just give me a minute. Now, I thought here, I was going to make this 25 matches, but I've actually been a bit overconfident and done it as 30 matches. So, they would play 4 tests against the All Blacks. Would the squad beat the All Blacks in a 4-test series? My prediction, probably a drawn series. I'm probably standing in the middle here. You guys can have your own opinion on that. The 5 Super 14 sides they were played: Crusaders, Hurricanes, Highlanders, Blues, Crusaders. They would play all the Super 14 sides in New Zealand, and the North and South Island. I haven't done any venues or anything. This is just like a general spectrum. I'm sure you guys will understand. They would also play a North Island side and a South Island side, which is really hard. So that's 11 hard matches for them. They would also play the New Zealand Māoris, the New Zealand Juniors, the New Zealand Universities, the New Zealand Combined Services, and the New Zealand Heartland 15, and that's a mixture of mid to hard matches where they probably win the majority of them. Right, now they would also play a Southland side. They would play a Tasman side. They would play what I would call a New Zealand Bay side, which is Hawke's Bay, Bay of Plenty, Poverty Bay, East Coast. They would also play Taranaki. They would also play 2 Barbarian teams, which, would be all those sides would be reasonably strong. So even though the Wallabies would probably win the majority of them, they would not be easy games. They would play a Mid-Canterbury, South Canterbury, North Otago, squad, which would probably be, all those second division teams would be a reasonably easy game for them. But, they would, play above their level, so that would be good. They would play Northland, which would be another game that would be a mid to hard game. They would also play an All Black B team, which would be, the next level down from the All Blacks. So that would be a hard game for them. They would play a Manawatu Wanganui Wairarapa Bush team, which, it's a bit of another sort of easy mid to hard game for them. And they would play a Canterbury West Coast team, which would be a mixture of, Mitre 10 Canterbury Cup players and West Coast players. So that would be a reasonably hard game for them, even though I would expect them to win that. And then I thought they would play a Targo squad, a Canterbury Country, a Wellington 15, Wellington 15 squad, and an Auckland 15 squad. Now, when I thought about these last 4 games, I thought, now, how many super players should they have playing in these last 4 games? I would say, to be fair, and I know a lot of, people, I've been a rugby guy all my life. I think I'm pretty fair when I try to do things. So I would probably let them, those last 4 teams maybe have 6 super fringe, Super 14 squad fringe members to play in each one of those teams, plus the majority of the Mitre 10 Cup guys that play in our Mitre 10 Cup competition to play in those teams as well. So all those teams would be reasonably strong. They wouldn't be a pushover. And if they play in the Wallaby B or whatever C team or whatever you want to call it, depending on who they've got left at the end of the tour, they would be, pushed, maybe not to the limit, but they would be hard games for them. And that's what I've done. So I put a lot of time and effort into this project. I'll let you guys judge on how it goes. Whether it's a success or not, I don't know. one of your viewers to Mark's channel. Oh, and thank you, Mark, for letting me do this video on your channel. I thank Mark very much for letting me do this. He knows I put a lot of time with it, and I've had a lot of discussions with him about it. I think that, I hope you guys Google and YouTube these guys that I've picked and the things that I've done on it. The next one I intend to do I don't know, one of you viewers asked me to do a South African one, which I'm really keen on doing. I probably won't do that straight away for the simple reason that it's going to take me probably a bigger effort than this one to do. But what I might do in the meantime is do maybe a 4-decade All Black team on a tour of South Africa or the home unions, England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, and maybe France and Italy and thrown in. So that would probably be my next one, would be the All Black one for a big tour, and then after that the Springbok one for a tour of either probably New Zealand, but also could be for the home unions. I've done some homework on it. I think the All Black one's going to be fairly straightforward for me to do. I think the Springbok one's going to be a little bit harder. I've had a look at it. It's going to be like the Australian one. It's going to be fairly challenging, and it's going to be interesting. But this, just going back to the final bit, this Wallaby squad to tour here and the injury cover is really good. Really good team. Really good team. Push New Zealand. Could they beat us? Maybe. I'm not sure. I'll leave it to your imagination to see whether this project I've done is a success. It's going to be interesting. I was excited to do this for you guys, and I thank you very much for bearing up with me during this interview. So cheers and goodbye, and good luck wherever you are in the world. Stay COVID-19 safe, and I will see you again soon. Okay, so cheers, goodbye. See you guys.